Hi guys, it's been a while since I've done one of these, but I just couldn't resist the opportunity to just speak a little bit for a few minutes about Spider-Man No Way Home, which I saw on Wednesday. Obviously there's been a lot of anticipation for this, and it'd be remiss of me to not get something on the internet. So this will be spoilers, so if you've not seen the movie yet, by all means go out and see it, come back later, or if you're not bothered, then watch away. Spider-Man No Way Home is the latest instalment featuring the Marvel Cinematic Universe, a version of Peter Parker played by Tom Holland, and it stars the usual suspects from the MCU Spider-Man movies in Zendaya, Jacob Batalon, and they're joined this time, due to the storyline, which is a multiverse shenanigans story. They're joined by Benedict Cumberbatch's Doctor Strange and a whole host of villains from the other universes back catalogue. So we have Willem Dafoe as Norman Osborn. We have Alfred Molina returning as Dr. Otto Octavius, amongst others. So let's just get this out of the way. I love the movie. I think it was excellent. I think there's certain things, particularly in the first half of the movie, because I do find it is a movie of two halves. Although it has the very traditional three-act structure, I feel in terms of quality it's a movie of two halves. And I certainly think there's a lot in that first half, that first hour in particular, where the movie has to do a series of mental gymnastics and some liberties with its setup to be able to get to the emotional payoff and the surprises that occur in the second half of the movie. The first half of the movie is quite choppy. It's kind of all over the place. It's like almost, at times it's almost edited like a montage. It's just bang. It's a sequence of small, almost vignettes that lead into and inform where the movie's going, but it does lack a sense of cohesion that I do enjoy in my movies. It's a bit sort of slapdash and chaotic, and it's testament to how good the performances are, particularly in the central three of Holland, Zendaya and Batalon, that they're able to sort of hold the glue that holds that first hour together. Because if it didn't quite have the endearing performances and the sort of strong characters we've come to expect from these movies, then the movie could have collapsed under its own weight by this point. But it's actually, again, testament to how good they are, that it works pretty well. There is a turning point in the movie, which we'll get to, but basically, in a nutshell, the story is at the end of Far From Home, Jake Gyllenhaal's Mysterio has revealed Peter Parker's identity to the world, and what the trailers never told us was the fact that the reason why he goes to see Doctor Strange to try and make the world forget is not from a point of view of himself. It's the fact that his actions have inadvertently ruined the opportunities for his friends, and I think that straight off the bat, we're starting to see a different side of the more sort of selfless Peter Parker we come to expect. I think Holland is able to explore that a little bit more in this movie, and that pays dividends as we go later into the movie as well. So I like that setup initially. I think it was a good way to start a different kind of Tom Holland Peter Parker, who has up until now kind of existed underneath the shadow of other characters, notably Tony Stark. So this was like one of the first times it really felt like they were able to go off into exploring the Peter Parker as a character. And obviously, as the movie goes on, the whole movie is about what it is to be Peter Parker, how lives that other Peter Parkers have lived have defined them, and the lessons that they can teach to Tom Holland, and it all comes full circle. And so due to so Peter Parker goes to Doctor Strange, and they try a spell to make the world forget that Peter Parker was Spider-Man, and the multiverse cracks and breaks, and this is how we have the Goblin and Otto Octavius, and we have we also have Sandman from Spider-Man 3, and we have from the Amazing Spider-Man movies, we have the Lizard, and my brain is failing me. The Lizard and Electro. Jamie Foxx is Electro, who is fantastic in this. I really liked him in this, actually. It's a very different interpretation of the character, which they kind of touch upon very briefly, but I like Jamie Foxx in this. I think he did really quite work for what is still ultimately quite limited screen time. And while while on the subject of the villains, I think aside from the more sort of CGI performances, which is Efon's Doc Connor's Lizard, thank you, Windows Security, and Thomas Hayden Church's Sandman, who is in essentially pretty much all CGI throughout the movie. Even his appearance at the end, I think, was lifted. They've lifted a couple of shots from Spider-Man 3, so I don't know whether Hayden Church couldn't get on set or whatever. But certainly the three main villains that populate the movie, they're all really fantastic. The Raimi characters in particular, Alfred Molina, and especially Willem Dafoe's Osborn, they steal so many of the scenes they're in. A really exceptional work. Who'd have thought, really, in all the build-up, that essentially the Goblin is going to be the main villain of this movie, and he is in turn through the setup, which is of course Spider-Man and Doctor Strange capturing these supervillains, and then you have Peter Parker wanting to rehabilitate them and send them back to their world in a hope that it might save them, because they all die fighting Spider-Man. It was nice to see the interactions and stuff between the supervillains up until the defining moment, which is sadly Marissa Tomei's Aunt May perishing at the hands of the Goblin, which really for me was the turning point emotionally for this movie. I think this was the moment where the setup stops, the movie takes over, and then we get Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire turning up, and I honestly, for the rest of the movie, I had a grin from ear to ear, and I won't lie, I had watery eyes at times. I don't have as much what's the word, admiration for the Amazing Spider-Man movies. I know they've got their fans, but I was always more of a Tobey Maguire fan, and I always felt quite burned when Spider-Man 4 got shelved in favour of a reboot, and and then Andrew Garfield, bless him, never really felt like he got the opportunity to explore the character beyond the work that he did. And I know he's always been a bit of a sort of cult Peter Parker in terms of how audiences responded to him and things like that. So despite the fact that the Amazing Spider-Man movies they're not amongst what I would consider to be my favourite superhero movies, his appearance still had a profound effect on me, because I knew how important this was for people. I've been following the online movements and things like that, and this was big. It was a big thing in the audience. This was very similar to Avengers Endgame in that it's one of the only times I've ever been in a UK audience, and anyone who's listening from around the world, British audiences, they don't get excited for this kind of stuff. It's not something that we don't whoop and we don't holler at the screen and things like that. It doesn't really happen over here. I can count on one hand across all the cinema experiences I've had. I can count on one hand, and I probably wouldn't even use all my fingers to count the times that I can recall audiences going crazy, and yet they went crazy multiple times through this movie, and the first of which was Andrew Garfield, and then Toby turned up, and really, if you were to nitpick and try and break the story down, I genuinely think it would collapse under its own weight. But by the time that these guys have turned up and the movie sort of fulfilling the potential it's promised, you just don't care, because it's just such a fun ride. And this is one of the great things the MCU does, is even if the actual raw content isn't always the most satisfying, not always the most well written, it can still be crowd pleasing enough to just carry through any of the flaws. And I don't think this movie's got too many flaws. I think it's certainly got, like I say, some structural issues in the first hour, but I certainly wouldn't say it was a flawed experience at all. But you really don't care by the time you've got, these three Spider-Men comparing notes about their tragedies, and I think the writing takes a step up when Garfield and Maguire turn up as well, and as a Spider-Man fan, certainly of the Raimi movies, of which I think the first two are still reference quality superhero films, like, this was an absolute dream come true. I loved every second of that, like the sort of last hour. I loved every second of it, and even though, like, as the story progresses and they come to work together and there's a big climactic showdown at the Statue of Liberty, even though I wouldn't necessarily say it's the best sequence in terms of like out and out direction and like a set piece, I think it's a little bit disappointing they chose to set it at night in an area that can't truly explore, the Spider-Man's ability. You want to be in high rises where they can be swinging and all sorts, and the movie doesn't allow the setting of the Statue of Liberty, despite the fact that it's covered in scaffolding and stuff, still doesn't allow a sense of freedom. Those expecting all these hero shots of the three of them swinging together and whatnot, there's only like one really good marketable shot, I would say, where the three of them actually swing past the camera, which I expect will be in the trailer that's rumoured to drop at any day now, because I think they're going to market the hell out of the fact that these three are there. And if anyone has seen any of the leaked photos or anything like that have occurred over the last year, will know they were all genuine. Every single one, even that shot which was assuredly a deep fake of Andrew Garfield on the railing with his arm up there, and it's all in the movie, it's all there, every single one of them. As is, we'll just touch upon it briefly, the Charlie Cox cameo. Now, from what I understood reading some of the production things behind the scenes, there was Charlie Cox had initially shot 2 scenes because they were casting extras for a courtroom scene. Now that's not in the movie, hopefully it'll turn up as deleted scenes, so we're only given at most, I think it's like a 1 minute 20 second scene of Charlie Cox as Matt Murdock. So it's short, it's very, very sweet. There's one really cool moment where you get a glimpse of what he's potentially capable of outside of his lawyer abilities, but it's a promise. That appearance is not so much its meaning within this movie, it's a promise from Marvel Studios, from Kevin Feige himself, that he's here now and we're going to be doing stuff with him. The fact that this movie launched in the UK the same day Hawkeye episode 5 launched on Disney Plus, and he said Netflix, which obviously had the debut of Vincent D'Onofrio's Wilson Fisk in the MCU. So these Netflix shows, it's out there as to whether they're historically going to be canon within the MCU, or whether it's a light reboot and whatnot, but they're here and I couldn't be more excited. Honestly, Wednesday as a Marvel fan, this Wednesday just gone, was like one of the best days for the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and I love the fact that it can still do this, despite the fact that I've had people telling me that this stuff's over when Endgame, when Endgame comes out, that's it, it's going to be pretty much finished. Where can they go after that? And it's like they're still continuing to give people what they want, to surprise people. We've just literally had a movie which has, in a roundabout way, kind of added at least 5 more movies to the MCU, because you can almost say Sam Raimi's 2002 Spider-Man is now, in a super roundabout way, an MCU movie, and that's really, really crazy and kind of exciting. I'm rambling now, so I'm going to wrap it up, but it was just a sort of a gushing of like what's going on in my brain. But yeah, like I say, it's any flaws I have with this movie are so irrelevant because of the payoff and the joy. There's just a sheer joy. That's the best word I can describe it, is the joy that I got from just seeing these returning actors. And the thing is, I do feel, I need to say something, that I do feel poor Tom Holland has been overshadowed a little bit by the amount of people that just wanted Andrew Garfield and just wanted Tobey Maguire. Tom Holland is probably giving the best work of his career in this movie. The dramatic places his character has to go is excellent, and let's not take anything away from what he achieves dramatically. This is, like I say, a career best Tom Holland in this. And it's one thing that it must be said, the acting across the board is excellent. Willem Dafoe has lost none of his power as the Goblin. Alfred Molina, in a very nice sort of way, it probably spends more of the movie as an ally than a villain, and that was always great, because Alfred Molina's Octavius, like, his best scenes in Spider-Man 2 are arguably the ones near the beginning where he's just sharing experiences with Peter. So I really like the fact that they were able to do things with that side of Octavius' character. And indeed, one of my favourite scenes in the movie is his reunion with Tobey Maguire, where you do get some throwback lines, and I know some people would be like, oh, they're just leaning on nostalgia too much, but I kind of really enjoyed that. I thought it was all right, and the throwback stuff I found quite satisfying. The big moment in the movie where MJ falls and Tom Holland fails to save her, and Andrew Garfield manages to do what he couldn't do for Gwen, I think is one of the most emotionally satisfying moments in the movie. In a movie where I would say I had more of an emotional reaction to this than Endgame. This pulls no punches in where it wants to take you emotionally, and I really respect that. I like the fact that even though this is a very sort of whiz-bang, huge spectacle of an MCU movie with special effects and big set pieces and that, at the forefront I always found the emotion was a priority, and I really take, I really have full respect for John Watts and the writers, that focus on making it, a human character piece with emotions never became second fiddle to special effects and crazy set pieces. The special effects are great and the set pieces are good, but it always has an emotional core at the centre of it, which anchors everything down, and I really, really appreciate them for it. A very comfortable and easy 9 out of 10. The only reason it doesn't get a 10 is because that first hour is really quite choppy, and it needed to be a little bit more tidier. But I don't hold it against it too much, because the setup that this movie needs to do is monumental to be able to make the things in the second half work. So, yeah, an easy 9 out of 10. Go see it on the biggest screen you can, if you can. Obviously, I think we're going to start seeing some cinema closures and whatnot because of COVID over Christmas, which is a shame, but if you can, I implore you, go and see it at the cinema on the biggest screen. You won't be disappointed if you're even the slightest fan of these movies. Apologies again for the ramble. I will try and get better at this and try and be more concise and more focused, but I just don't get time to do anything like this anymore, so it's a miracle I've just even been able to find 20 minutes here to be able to do this. So thanks for watching. I won't even say like and subscribe, because honestly, I don't know when the next time I'm going to be able to do anything like this is. So, nice to get this out there. Nice to put a few words down on a YouTube video, and I will see you all very soon. Thank you and take care. Bye bye for now. Cheers.